The red dust of Mars swirled around the entrance of the abandoned research facility as Marcus Reed checked his suit's oxygen levels one more time. The old building stood half-buried in the rusty soil, its metal walls dulled by decades of exposure to the harsh Martian environment. He had spent 3 years getting permission to explore this site, and now that he was here, his heart wouldn't stop racing. Marcus switched on his helmet lights and stepped through the airlock. The facility's backup power systems still worked after all these years, making his job a little easier. His boots left clear prints in the dust that had managed to sneak inside over the years. According to the old maps, the main research lab should be 2 levels down. The silence was broken only by his breathing and the soft hum of his suit's systems. As he made his way deeper into the facility, his mind wandered to the stories he'd heard about this place. It was one of the first research stations built on Mars, abandoned during the Great Solar Storm of 2047. The evacuation had been so quick that they'd left almost everything behind. A loud beep from his scanner pulled him back to the present. The device was picking up unusual energy readings from somewhere below. Marcus checked his map again and found a stairwell hidden behind a half-closed door. The stairs looked stable enough, but he tested each step carefully before putting his full weight on it. The second level was darker, and the backup lights flickered uncertainly. His scanner's beeping grew stronger as he approached a heavy blast door at the end of a long corridor. It took him several minutes to override the old security system, but finally, the door slid open with a grinding sound that echoed through the empty halls. What he found inside made him freeze. The lab was massive, much bigger than the building plans had shown, and in its center stood something that shouldn't exist. It looked like a cannon, but unlike anything he'd ever seen before. The device was clearly human-made, but its design seemed impossible for the time period. It predated humanity's first spaceflight, yet here it was, on Mars. Marcus was so absorbed in studying the weapon that he almost missed the sound of another airlock cycling. He turned around to find 5 figures entering the lab. Their environmental suits were sleek and advanced, marking them as members of the Collective, the galaxy's leading civilization. The aliens had arrived on Earth 10 years ago, bringing amazing technology and a condescending attitude toward humanity's primitive achievements. Dr. Reed, the tallest figure, said, removing its helmet to reveal Administrator Vex's gray-skinned face. "We're quite disappointed. This area was meant to be sealed until our archaeological team could properly examine it." Marcus stood his ground. "This is a human facility, Administrator. My permits are in order." Vex walked around the weapon, his 4 eyes blinking in different patterns, a sign of amusement among his species. "And what do you make of this artifact?" "It's some kind of weapon system," Marcus replied, watching as the other Collective members scanned the device. "But its design doesn't match anything from the facility's time period. A primitive projectile weapon, nothing more," one of the other aliens said, their voice dripping with disdain. "Barely worth studying." Marcus wanted to argue, but his scanner started beeping frantically. The energy readings from the weapon were spiking. As he watched, small lights began appearing along its surface, and a low hum filled the room. "Interesting," Vex said, though his tone suggested he was anything but impressed. "Your species does have a fascinating habit of preserving museum pieces, though I suppose when your civilization is as young as humanity, even primitive tools seem worth saving." The other Collective members laughed, but Marcus barely heard them. He was too focused on his readings. The energy signature didn't match any known weapon type, not even the advanced ones the Collective had shown them. It was something entirely different, and possibly far more powerful than the aliens realized. "We'll take it from here, Dr. Reed," Vex announced. "The Collective's facilities are much better equipped to study such artifacts, though I doubt we'll learn anything of value from such outdated technology." "With all due respect, Administrator," Marcus said carefully, "this is a human relic found in a human facility. It falls under Earth's jurisdiction." Vex's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones widened, a clear sign of annoyance. "Dr. Reed, You seem to be under the impression that you have a choice in this matter. The Collective's archaeological division has ultimate authority over all significant technological discoveries in this sector. Or did you forget the terms of our partnership? Marcus knew he was right about the terms, but something felt wrong about this whole situation. The Collective had never shown this much interest in human artifacts before. Why were they so eager to claim this one? I'll need to report this to Earth Command, Marcus said, trying to buy time while he recorded as much data as he could. Of course, Vex replied smoothly. Report whatever you wish. My team will begin preparations to move the artifact immediately. As the Collective members began setting up their equipment, Marcus made his way to the lab's communication terminal. The energy readings were still climbing, and he needed to get this information to Earth before the Collective took over. He had a feeling this primitive weapon was far more important than anyone realized. What he didn't know yet was that this discovery would change everything. The weapon he'd found wasn't just an old relic. It was proof that humanity's past held secrets that even the Collective couldn't comprehend. And soon, everyone would understand just how dangerous it could be to underestimate humanity's primitive technology. As Marcus sent his data burst to Earth, he took one last look at the weapon. The humming had grown louder, and more lights were appearing across its surface. Whatever this thing was, he had a feeling they'd all find out soon enough. The only question was whether humanity would get to unlock its secrets, or if the Collective would bury this discovery like they had so many others. 2 weeks after the discovery on Mars, Marcus sat in his small lab on Earth, staring at the data readings for the 100th time. The Collective had taken the weapon, but they couldn't take the information he'd managed to gather. Something about those energy signatures kept bothering him. They didn't make any sense, almost as if the weapon was designed to work in ways that broke the laws of physics. A knock on his door made him look up. Linda Torres, his research assistant, stood in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee and a worried look on her face. "You need to see this," she said, placing 1 cup on his desk and turning on the wall screen. The news feed showed a massive Collective ship hanging in orbit around Jupiter. It wasn't one of their usual diplomatic vessels or trade ships. This was something else entirely, a warship. As Marcus watched, more ships appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel like deadly rain. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore," Linda said, her voice tight with concern. "This came in 10 minutes ago. The Collective is demanding an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He'd seen that look in Administrator Vex's eyes back on Mars, the look of someone who'd finally found what they'd been searching for. "They were never here to help us, were they?" The answer came 3 hours later. Every screen on Earth lit up with Administrator Vex's face. His 4 eyes weren't showing any signs of amusement now. "People of Earth," he began, his voice cold and clear. "For 10 years, we have watched your civilization develop. We have guided you, studied you, and evaluated you. Today, we have reached our conclusion." The camera pulled back to show the weapon they'd found on Mars, now mounted on some kind of testing platform. "Your kind has a disturbing tendency to create weapons of incredible destructive power. We found this one before you could restore it, but we know there are others. The Collective cannot allow potentially dangerous species to threaten the peace we have maintained for 10,000 years. Marcus grabbed his phone and called Linda. She answered before the first ring finished. "I'm already on my way to the lab," she said. "Meet me there." On screen, Vex continued. "You have 2 Earth days to surrender all military assets and submit to full Collective control. Any resistance will be met with immediate planetary punishment. To demonstrate our resolve." The camera view shifted to show one of Jupiter's smaller moons. There was a flash of light from the Collective fleet, and the moon simply disappeared. No explosion, no debris field. It was just gone, taking 3 research bases and 500 human colonists with it. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm us," Vex said. "Your technology is nothing compared to ours. Submit, or face extinction." The broadcast cut off, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Marcus ran to his lab, his mind racing. The weapon they'd found. Those impossible energy readings. What if they weren't impossible at all? What if they were just beyond anything modern science could explain? Linda was already at work when he arrived, her fingers flying over 3 different keyboards. The energy signature, she said without looking up. It wasn't a normal weapon pattern because it wasn't just a weapon. Look at this. She pulled up 2 displays, one showing the readings from Mars, the other showing long-range scans of the destroyed moon. The patterns matched. They didn't want the weapon because it was dangerous, Marcus said, finally understanding. They wanted it because they recognized what it could do. They've seen it before. Linda nodded. The weapon isn't primitive at all. It's way beyond anything we have now. Someone in Earth's past built a planet killer, then hid it away. The question is, who and why? They worked through the night, digging through the data Marcus had collected. More collective ships arrived every hour, taking up positions around Earth's solar system. They were boxing humanity in, preparing for either surrender or slaughter. But with each passing hour, Marcus and Linda uncovered more about the weapon's true nature. It didn't fire normal projectiles or energy beams. Instead, it somehow targeted the fundamental frequency of matter itself, causing it to simply cease existing. The amount of power needed to make it work was enormous, far beyond anything humanity had when it was built. Look at these markings, Linda said, zooming in on one of the images from Mars. They're not random damage. They're words, just really worn down. And they're in English. Marcus leaned in close, squinting at the screen. As Linda enhanced the image, his eyes widened. Warning, he read slowly. Use only as last resort. The cost of power is high, but the cost of failure is extinction. That's not all, Linda said, her voice shaking slightly. I found a reference to this kind of technology in some old folklore. Stories about a civilization that existed on Earth long before recorded history. They were supposed to have built amazing things, then vanished overnight. Most historians dismiss it as myth, but a loud alarm cut through the air. On their screens, they could see the collective fleet moving into attack formation. They weren't going to wait 2 days. The attack was starting now. Marcus grabbed his phone and called Earth Command. Get me the Defense Council, he said. Now, tell them we found something about the weapon from Mars. Tell them we might have a way to fight back. As he waited to be connected, he looked at the image of the collective fleet. Their ships were beautiful, powerful, and utterly advanced. They thought they had humanity trapped and helpless. But they had made one huge mistake. They had assumed that just because something was old, it had to be primitive. They had forgotten that sometimes the most dangerous weapons are the ones that time forgot. Now humanity just had to hope they could figure out how to use it before the collective decided to demonstrate their power again. This time on Earth itself. Last edited 3 days ago. The underground bunker of Earth Command buzzed with activity as Marcus and Linda presented their findings. The room was filled with military leaders and scientists, all watching the holographic display of the ancient weapon schematics. Outside, the sky had turned an eerie purple as the collective's ships entered the upper atmosphere, their energy fields distorting the light of the sun. The weapon doesn't just destroy things, Linda explained, pointing to the complex energy patterns on the screen. It erases them completely. It targets the specific frequency that holds matter together in our universe. Like tuning a radio to exactly the right station, but instead of music, you get nothing. One of the generals leaned forward, his face lined with worry. And you're certain this weapon was made on Earth? By humans? Marcus nodded, pulling up the images of the worn text they'd found. By humans, yes, but not from any civilization we know of. The technology is far beyond anything we should have been capable of back then. These energy readings suggest whoever built it had mastered power sources we're only theorizing about now. What kind of power are we talking about? Another scientist asked. Linda took a deep breath. Based on our calculations, to fire it once would take the same amount of energy as 100 modern fusion reactors running at full power. The builders left notes warning that using it required an enormous power cost. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Above them, the collected ships had finished forming their attack pattern. Their deadline for surrender was still 12 hours away, but no one believed they would wait that long. Marcus walked to the main display and brought up a new set of readings. We've been testing the principles behind the weapon on a small scale. Watch this. He played a video showing a tiny version of the device, powered by a portable fusion cell. When activated, it fired at a block of steel. The metal didn't melt or explode. It simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing behind, not even dust. That was with just a fraction of the power it was designed to use. Linda added, "Imagine that effect scaled up to planetary size." One of the military advisors spoke up. "The collective ships have shields, advanced energy barriers. How do we know this would even work against them?" "Because they're scared of it," Marcus said simply. "Think about it. They came to Earth claiming to be peaceful, but they spent 10 years searching for something. When they found this weapon, they immediately dropped their friendly act. They recognized what it could do, and their first move was to take it away from us." A warning siren cut through the air. On the main screens, they could see the collective ships moving into attack position over major cities. They weren't going to wait for their own deadline. "They're starting with Mars," someone shouted. Multiple energy signatures detected. The room watched in horror as beams of light struck the red planet. Massive explosions bloomed across its surface as human colonies were wiped out one by one. The message was clear: surrender or be next. How long would it take to power up the weapon? The head of Earth Command asked, his voice steady despite the terror unfolding on the screens. Linda checked her calculations. "If we redirect power from every major fusion plant on Earth, maybe 6 hours. But we have to shut down almost everything else. Cities, defense systems, everything. And we'd only get one shot," Marcus added. "The power draw would burn out most of our infrastructure." The general nodded grimly. "One shot is all we need, if it works. Begin the power diversion. And someone get me a line to Administrator Vex. Let's see if we can buy some time." As the room burst into action, Marcus and Linda rushed to their equipment. They had studied the weapon's control systems extensively, but actually firing it would be another matter entirely. One wrong calculation, one misaligned frequency, and their one shot would be wasted. Time seemed to blur as they worked. Reports kept coming in of more attacks on Mars, each one destroying another piece of humanity's first colony world. The collective was being methodical, making Earth watch as they erased years of human achievement. 5 hours into their preparation, all the screens lit up with Administrator Vex's face. His 4 eyes showed no emotion as he spoke. "Your time grows short, humans. Mars burns as an example. Earth will be next. Submit now, and we may show mercy." The head of Earth Command stood straight as he replied. "We notice you haven't used the weapon you took from us. Could it be you're afraid to touch it? Afraid it might do to you what it did to its last targets?" For the first time, they saw uncertainty flicker across Vex's alien features. "Your primitive relic is useless. We merely kept it to prevent you from harming yourselves with it. Then you won't mind if we tell you we found another one," Linda said suddenly, stepping into view, "and we figured out how to power it." The change in Vex's expression was subtle but unmistakable. Fear. Pure, unmistakable fear. The transmission cut off abruptly. "They're moving their ships back," someone reported, "pulling out of the atmosphere. New formation. They're clustering together. Defensive pattern." Marcus looked at the power readings. They were at 80% of what they needed. The weapon's control systems were humming with energy, ancient machinery coming fully alive for the first time in thousands of years. "They're afraid," he said softly. "They know exactly what this weapon can do. The only question is, do we know enough to make it work?" Linda squeezed his shoulder. "I guess we'll find out. One way or another, Earth's future depends on us understanding our past. Let's hope our ancestors left us enough clues to finish what they started. Above them, the collective fleet continued to gather, preparing for what they thought would be their moment of triumph. They had no way of knowing that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the relic they'd stolen. It was humanity's habit of studying, preserving, and learning from the past. The ancient weapons control room had been rebuilt deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Marcus and Linda worked frantically as a countdown timer on the wall showed they had less than 1 hour before the collective resumed their attack. Power from across the globe was being channeled into the facility, causing the lights to flicker and the temperature to rise as systems strained under the immense energy flow. Final calibration sequence, Linda said, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she worked. We're reaching power levels that shouldn't be possible with our current technology. Marcus nodded, his eyes fixed on the readouts. The ancients designed it to draw power from multiple sources at once. It's like the weapon itself is amplifying what we're feeding it. He looked up at the main screen showing the collective fleet. Their ships had formed a tight defensive cluster, as if they knew what was coming. The room was crowded with military personnel and the world's top scientists, all watching in tense silence. Earth's remaining defensive ships had positioned themselves in a protective formation around the planet, though everyone knew they wouldn't last long against the collective's superior weapons. A general stepped forward, his face grim. We just lost contact with the lunar base. The collective is taking out our off-world communications one by one. They're isolating us, Linda said without looking up from her work, cutting us off before the final strike. Marcus checked the power levels one more time. They were at 94% and climbing slowly. We need more time, he said. The weapon will fire at 100%, but optimal targeting requires a full power cycle first. Otherwise, we might miss. The head of Earth Command rubbed his tired eyes. We don't have more time. Look. On the screen, several collective ships were breaking away from the main fleet, moving into attack positions. Their weapon systems were powering up, glowing with the same energy that had destroyed Mars. We need a distraction, the general said. Something to buy us those extra minutes. As if in answer, a young officer burst into the room. Sir, the Pacific Defense Fleet is moving into engagement range. Admiral Greaves says they'll draw the collective's attention. Everyone watched as Earth's ships, looking tiny compared to the massive alien vessels, accelerated toward the enemy. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. Tell Greaves, the general started, then paused. Tell him the whole planet is watching. Make it count. On the main screen, Earth's ships opened fire on the collective fleet. Their weapons seemed pathetically weak, barely scratching the advanced shields. But it worked. The collective ships that had been preparing to attack Earth turned to deal with this unexpected threat. They're buying us time, Linda whispered. We can't waste it. Marcus nodded, focusing back on the weapon controls. The ancient systems responded to their adjustments, the power level climbing to 97%, then 98%. Marcus studied the targeting system, trying to understand the complex calculations involved. The weapon didn't target a physical location. It targeted the unique frequency of matter itself. I think I see it now, he said suddenly. The targeting system isn't just spatial coordinates. It's looking for a specific pattern in the fabric of reality, like tuning a radio to exactly the right station. Linda looked up. The collective ships all use the same shield frequency. If we target that specific pattern, we could take out their entire fleet with one shot. Marcus finished. His hands flew over the controls, inputting the new parameters. On the screen, Earth's ships were being destroyed one by one. Admiral Greaves' flagship was the last to fall, ramming itself into a collective vessel in a final act of defiance. The sacrifice had worked, though. The power level had reached 99%. Target locked, Linda announced. The weapon is identifying the collective's main command ship based on its energy signature. The room fell silent as the final preparations were made. The ancient weapon hummed with power, a deep vibration that seemed to resonate with the earth itself. Outside the facility, the sky had darkened as power stations across the planet directed all their output to this single purpose. 100%, Marcus said quietly. We're ready. The head of Earth Command stepped forward. Do it. Marcus took a deep breath and pressed his hand against the activation panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the facility lights dimmed completely as the weapon drew its final power surge. A low, singing tone filled the air, building in intensity until everyone had to cover their ears. On the screen, a beam of pure white light shot up from somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. It looked almost delicate, like a thread of silk stretching into space. The collective ships didn't react at first, as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Energy signature climbing beyond measurable levels. Someone reported, their voice filled with awe. The beam is somehow gaining power as it travels. The white light reached the collective's command ship and seemed to stop. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the light changed, spreading across the surface of the ship like water. Where it touched, matter simply ceased to exist, leaving perfect voids in the shape of the vessel. It's working, Linda whispered. The effect spread from ship to ship, following the connections of their shared shield frequency. Within moments, half the collective fleet had vanished, not destroyed but simply erased from existence. The remaining ships tried to flee, breaking formation and scattering in all directions. The beam followed, splitting into dozens of smaller threads, each seeking out its target with perfect precision. In less than a minute, the entire collective attack force had vanished. The room erupted in cheers, but Marcus kept his eyes on the readings. Something's happening, he said, raising his voice to be heard. The weapon is still active. The beam, now barely visible from Earth, had changed course. It was stretching further into space, towards something beyond their solar system. It's targeting their homeworld. Linda realized, her face pale. The weapon isn't just hitting their ships. It's following the frequency back to its source. The room fell silent again as they watched the beam stretch beyond their tracking capabilities. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then their deep space sensors detected a massive energy surge from the direction of the collective's home system. My God, someone whispered. Did we just? Before anyone could answer, every screen in the facility lit up with Administrator Vex's face. For once, all 4 of his eyes showed the same emotion. Terror. What have you done? He demanded, his voice shaking. That weapon was never meant to be used. It was sealed away for a reason. Marcus stepped forward. You threatened our planet. You destroyed our colonies. What did you expect us to do? You don't understand, Vex said, actual fear breaking through his usually composed demeanor. That weapon doesn't just destroy. It erases. Completely. Our main world is gone, along with 3 billion lives. Just gone. The implications of what they'd done settled heavily on everyone in the room. They had just wiped out an entire planet with a single shot. 3 days after the weapon fired, Marcus stood at the observation window of the International Space Station, watching the remains of the collective fleet retreat from Earth's solar system. The once mighty armada was reduced to a handful of ships, their engines pushed to maximum as they fled from the planet they had so recently threatened to destroy. Earth had won, but the victory felt hollow. The weapon had done far more than they had intended, reaching across space to erase the collective's homeworld from existence. 3 billion lives gone in an instant. Marcus couldn't help but wonder if they had become the very monster they had fought against. You couldn't have known, Linda said, floating up beside him. She had dark circles under her eyes from 3 days without proper sleep. The weapon was designed to follow energy signatures to their source. No one could have predicted it would reach that far. Marcus sighed, his breath fogging the reinforced glass. We should have tried harder to understand it before we used it. The ancient builders must have sealed it away for a reason. The space station shuddered slightly as a shuttle docked. It would be carrying the representatives from Earth Command, and what remained of the collective leadership. Both sides had agreed to meet on neutral ground, away from the weapon that had changed everything. "It's time," Linda said quietly. The conference room was tense as humans and aliens sat across from each other. Administrator Vex looked diminished somehow, his usually perfect posture now slumped with the weight of loss. 3 other collective leaders accompanied him, their four-eyed gazes filled with a mixture of fear and hatred. The head of Earth Command spoke first. "We regret the extent of the damage caused by the ancient weapon. It was never our intention to target civilian populations." Vex's laugh was bitter. "Yet you were willing to use a weapon you didn't understand, against an enemy you knew nothing about." His upper eyes narrowed. "Did you ever wonder why that weapon was on Mars? Why it was sealed away and not on display as a testament to human achievement?" Marcus leaned forward. "We assumed it was hidden to keep it from falling into the wrong hands." "It was hidden because it should never have been built," Vex snapped. "Some technologies are too dangerous to exist, even as a deterrent." One of the other collective leaders spoke, her voice softer than Vex. "What you discovered wasn't a human weapon at all. It was built to fight us, yes, but not by your kind." A confused murmur ran through the human side of the table. The female alien continued. "Long before your recorded history, another species lived on Earth. They were peaceful, advanced, curious, much like you. We called them the predecessors." Vex picked up the story, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "The collective wasn't always what it is today. 10,000 years ago, we were conquerors, moving from system to system, taking what we wanted. Earth was just another target." Linda's eyes widened. "The ancient civilization in our myths, the ones who supposedly vanished overnight. They didn't vanish," the female alien said. "They fought back. They built weapons like the one you found, designed to target our specific energy signatures. But in the final battle, when they activated their defense system, it worked too well." Marcus finished, understanding dawning on his face. "It didn't just target your ships. It followed the energy pattern all the way back to your homeworld." Vex nodded slowly. "Just as you did to us. History repeats itself, it seems." The predecessors were horrified by what they'd done. They had only meant to defend themselves, not commit genocide. In their shame, they sealed away their weapons, scattered them across your solar system. And then, he paused. "Then what?" the Earth Command leader asked. "They left," Vex said simply. "Abandoned this world and their technology. They couldn't bear to live with what they had done." The collective survivors swore never to conquer again, to become protectors instead of destroyers. "For 10,000 years, we've kept that promise." "Until you came to Earth," Marcus said. "Why? If you had changed your ways, why come here at all?" The female alien answered. "Our scientists detected the weapon's energy signature becoming active again. We feared the predecessors had returned, or worse, the humans had found their technology without understanding the dangers. We came to find and contain the weapons before they could be used again." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The collective hadn't come as conquerors, but as guardians, trying to prevent history from repeating itself. Yet their secrecy and condescension had created the very conflict they sought to avoid. "You should have told us the truth from the beginning," Linda said. "Instead, you treated us like children, hiding the real reason you were here." "Would you have believed us?" Vex asked. "Or would you have seen our warnings as an attempt to keep powerful weapons out of human hands? We observe your history. You don't exactly have a record of putting aside weapons once you found them." No one on the human side could argue with that point. The head of Earth Command cleared his throat. "So where do we go from here? Your fleet is decimated. Our planet is intact, but our power grid is in shambles. Neither of us is in a position to continue fighting." Vex looked at his fellow collective members, then back at the humans. "We propose a true alliance this time. No more secrets, no more condescension. We help you rebuild, and you help us find any remaining predecessor weapons before they can cause more harm. And then what? Marcus asked. Do we destroy them? No, Vex said, surprising everyone. We study them together, carefully, in controlled environments. The predecessors were more advanced than either of our civilizations. Their technology could benefit the galaxy if properly understood and safely adapted. Discussions continued for hours, hammering out the details of this new relationship. By the time they finished, the first tentative steps toward genuine cooperation had been taken. As Marcus and Linda prepared to return to Earth, they stood one last time at the observation window. The blue-green planet below them looked peaceful from this distance, showing no signs of the near extinction they had faced. Do you think it will work? Linda asked. This alliance. Marcus considered the question carefully. I think we both learned some hard lessons. The collective learned not to underestimate primitive species, and we learned that just because we can use a technology doesn't mean we should. Linda nodded. The predecessors must have felt the same way. Powerful enough to wipe out their enemies, but wise enough to walk away from that power afterward. Maybe that's the real test of an advanced civilization, Marcus said. Not what you can build, but what you choose not to use. As their shuttle detached from the station and began its descent, both humans watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the predecessors might still exist, watching to see what their inheritors would do with the world they'd left behind. Marcus hoped they would be proud of the choice humanity had made today, to learn from the past rather than repeat it. The ancient weapon remained sealed in its bunker, its power source disconnected. It would be studied carefully, jointly by human and collective scientists, with safeguards to prevent it from ever being fired again. A reminder that some relics deserve respect, not because they're powerful, but because of the terrible lessons they teach. Earth would never again underestimate the dangers of the past, nor would the collective dismiss the potential of younger races. Together, they would face whatever challenges the universe held next, wiser, humbler, and united by the understanding that came from nearly destroying each other. The massive Star Empire ship hung silently in the darkness of space, its sensors focused on the blue-green planet below. Commander Ross stood at the bridge's main viewport, his hands clasped behind his back as he studied the target. Earth looked peaceful, almost defenseless, spinning slowly against the black backdrop of space. He couldn't believe how easy this was going to be. Sir, initial scans are complete, reported Officer Turner from his station. We're detecting approximately 3,000 artificial satellites in orbit, most of them appearing to be primitive communication and weather monitoring devices. Ross nodded, not bothering to hide his smile. The Empire's intelligence had been correct. Earth's defenses were pathetically obvious. They hadn't even tried to hide their technology. What about their space stations? 2 small ones in low orbit, sir. Basic construction. Nothing that could pose a threat to our fleet. The plan was simple. The Empire would take Earth quickly, securing its resources and strategic position. The humans had shown some potential by reaching their moon and sending primitive probes to nearby planets, but they were clearly centuries behind the Empire in military technology. Meanwhile, on the far side of the moon, Admiral Stone received the alert she had been waiting for. The Empire's scout ships had finally arrived. She sat in her office deep within the Lunar Command Center, reading the latest reports from Earth's scattered sensor network. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Admiral, Lieutenant Wells called from his communication station. We're picking up their scan patterns. They're falling for it. The dummy satellites are drawing most of their attention. Stone allowed herself a small smile. For decades, Earth had maintained its appearance of technological innocence. Every satellite they launched was deliberately designed to look primitive. Every space station was built to appear basic and vulnerable. It had been a long game, but now it would pay off. What's their fleet composition? She asked, walking over to the main tactical display. 27 capital ships, about 200 support vessels. Wells answered. They're spreading out in standard conquest formation, just like the simulations predicted. Stone touched a control panel. bringing up a secure channel to Earth's hidden defense command. Major Baker's face appeared on the screen, looking calm despite the situation. "They took the bait," Stone reported. "Are the ground teams ready?" "All stations green," Baker replied. "Surface batteries are masked and tracking. Underground silos are armed. We can launch on your command." The Empire's invasion fleet grew larger by the hour. More ships arrived through their faster-than-light gates, each one taking position around Earth, as if they were setting up for a simple training exercise. None of them noticed that the primitive weather satellites were actually recording their every move, building a detailed tactical picture of the invasion force. From his command ship, Ross watched the deployment with satisfaction. "Begin broadcasting the surrender demands," he ordered. "All major Earth languages, on their public frequencies. Let's see how quickly they break." The demands echoed across Earth's radio channels. The Empire's message was clear: surrender immediately or face destruction. They expected panic, chaos, perhaps a few token attempts at resistance. Instead, they got silence. "Sir," Turner reported, frowning at his display, "we're getting no official response from any Earth government." Ross wasn't concerned. "They're probably arguing among themselves." Primitive societies often fracture under pressure. Launch the warning shot. Target one of their larger cities with a low power beam. Show them we're serious. In her lunar base, Stone watched the Empire's ships adjusting their positions. The warning shot would never come. Every weapon targeting system they tried to power up would mysteriously malfunction, thanks to the quantum interference field Earth had secretly established years ago. The humans had learned about the Empire's technology from their own scouts, carefully hidden among alien populations. "All defense grid sectors report ready," Wells announced, waiting for final authorization. Stone checked the tactical display one last time. The Empire's ships had moved exactly where Earth wanted them, clustering in predictable patterns around the planet. Their arrogance made them vulnerable. They thought they were facing a primitive world taking its first steps into space. They had no idea they were facing a unified Earth that had been preparing for this moment for generations. "Send the coded alert to all Earth governments," Stone ordered. "Tell them to begin civilian shelter protocols." Quietly. Across the planet, people went about their daily lives, unaware of the massive fleet hanging above them. Underground, vast civil defense systems activated. Hidden bunkers opened their doors. Earth's real military installations, concealed beneath civilian structures and natural features, came to life. In orbit, Ross was growing impatient. "Why aren't our targeting systems functioning properly?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," Turner replied. "We're detecting some kind of interference, but it doesn't match any known pattern. Engineering says it's like something is actively blocking our weapons, but that's impossible. These primitives don't have that kind of technology." Ross slammed his fist on his command chair. "Launch fighters. We'll do this the old-fashioned way." The Empire's fighter squadrons deployed, their ships gleaming in the sunlight as they descended toward Earth's atmosphere. They expected to encounter minimal resistance, perhaps a few outdated jet fighters. What they didn't know was that every move they made was being fed into Earth's defense computers, updating firing solutions and tactical plans. Stone watched the fighters deploy, knowing the Empire was playing directly into their hands. "Send word to Captain Miller," she ordered. "Tell him to prepare the Mars batteries. When this starts, we hit them from all sides." The lunar base hummed with quiet activity as final preparations were made. Decades of preparation were about to pay off. Humanity had known they weren't alone in the universe for a long time, but they had kept that knowledge secret. They had watched, learned, and prepared. While other worlds built obvious defenses and flaunted their military might, Earth had chosen a different path. "Admiral," Wells called out, his voice tight with anticipation, "the Empire's fighters have reached the optimal engagement zone. All Earth defense systems are showing green. We're ready." Stone nodded, thinking of all the years of preparation, all the resources that had gone into this moment. The Empire thought they had found an easy target, a peaceful world ripe for conquest. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Send the authorization code," she ordered. "Let's show them what a primitive world can do." As the Empire's fighters began their attack runs, Earth's true defenses remained hidden, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. The trap was set. Soon, the Empire would learn that appearing defenseless was humanity's greatest deception, and this peaceful planet was anything but helpless. The Empire's fighters streaked through Earth's upper atmosphere, their weapons ready to strike. Commander Ross watched from his command ship, expecting to see panic and chaos erupting across the planet below. Instead, the response was oddly calm. A few small military jets rose to meet them, but their movements seemed clumsy and uncoordinated. "Sir," Turner reported, "Earth's aircraft are retreating. They'd barely even try to engage us." Ross smiled. This was exactly what he had expected from such a primitive world. "Begin the second wave. Target their major military installations." He paused, then added, "The ones we can see, anyway. These humans aren't exactly subtle with their bases." The Empire's fighters dove toward their targets, sleek and deadly. They expected to find traditional military bases with obvious runways, radar installations, and defensive positions. What they found instead were mostly empty buildings and outdated equipment. On the lunar base, Admiral Stone watched the Empire's attack through multiple data feeds. "They're hitting the decoy bases," she reported to Major Baker. "How are our real forces holding up?" "All units maintaining position," Baker replied from his underground command center. "The Empire's scans still haven't detected any of our actual installations. The shielding is working perfectly." The Empire's initial strikes created impressive explosions, destroying what appeared to be key military targets. Ross watched with satisfaction as his fighters reported success after success, but something was bothering him. The humans weren't responding the way conquered species usually did. There were no mass panics, no desperate counterattacks, no emergency broadcasts begging for mercy. "Status report on Earth's communications," he ordered. Turner checked his readings. "Still mostly normal, sir. They've switched some channels to emergency broadcasts, but it's all very organized. Almost like they were expecting this." Ross frowned. In his 20 years of conquest, he had never seen a population this calm under attack. "Launch the ground troops," he ordered. "Let's see how they handle actual invasion forces." The Empire's transport ships began their descent, carrying thousands of soldiers in full battle armor. They targeted major cities, ready to establish control points and begin the real conquest of Earth. As they descended, small groups of human military forces appeared to be evacuating civilians in an orderly fashion. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Lieutenant Wells monitored the invasion from a hidden command center. "Admiral," he reported to Stone, "the Empire is deploying ground forces. They're following standard invasion protocols, just like our intelligence suggested they would." Stone nodded. The Empire's predictability was their greatest weakness. "Are they hitting the designated zones?" "Yes, Mom. They're landing exactly where we want them." The first wave of Empire troops landed in what they thought were strategic locations around the globe. They expected resistance, but found mostly empty streets and closed buildings. The few humans they encountered offered no resistance, quickly retreating into underground shelters. Ross watched the ground operation feeds with growing unease. "Something's wrong," he muttered. "This is too easy." Where are their main forces? In Washington, D.C., an Empire commander named Peters led his troops through the empty streets. Their sensors showed humans gathered in underground shelters, but no significant military presence. They'd reached the White House without facing any resistance. "Command, this is Ground Force One," Peters reported. "We've secured the human leadership building, but it's empty. No signs of struggle. No destroyed documents. Nothing. It's like they cleared out days ago." Similar reports came in from other major cities around the world. The Empire's forces found themselves capturing empty buildings and deserted government centers. Everything of real value, people, data, resources, had been quietly moved long before they arrived. In her lunar command center, Stone received the reports with grim satisfaction. They've committed almost 60% of their ground forces, she noted. Are the underground systems ready? Yes, Admiral, Baker replied. The moment you give the word, we can seal off every landing zone. The Empire's troops won't know what hit them. Ross paced on his command ship, the feeling of unease growing stronger. Launch our second wave of ground forces, he ordered, and get me a deep scan of those urban centers. There has to be something we're missing. The Empire's sensors probed deeper into Earth's cities, but the quantum interference field continued to hide humanity's true defenses. What looked like simple subway tunnels and underground shelters were actually vast military complexes, waiting for the right moment to strike. Sir, Turner called out, his voice tense, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the planet's polar regions. What kind of readings? Ross demanded. Unknown, sir. They're like nothing in our database. And they're growing stronger. In the lunar base, Stone received the alert she had been waiting for. The Empire had finally noticed Earth's power buildup, but it was too late. Their ground forces were committed, their ships were in position, and they had no idea they were standing on top of the largest trap ever created. Send the signal to all Earth defense forces, she ordered. Commence Operation Payback. Across the planet, hidden doors began to open. What the Empire thought were simple civilian bunkers revealed themselves to be military strongholds. The primitive satellites in orbit suddenly began moving in perfect coordination, and deep beneath the ice of Antarctica and the Arctic, massive energy weapons powered up. Ross watched in growing horror as his tactical display lit up with thousands of new contacts. The empty cities were coming alive with military activity. The retreating human forces had been leading his troops into prepared kill zones, and the orbital space that his fleet had so confidently occupied was now filled with previously invisible defense platforms. All ships, battle stations, he shouted, but he already knew it was too late. The Empire's mighty invasion force had walked right into humanity's trap, and they were about to learn the cost of underestimating Earth. In Washington, D.C., Commander Peters and his troops watched in shock as the streets around them began to transform. Panels slid open in buildings and roads, revealing advanced weapon systems. The empty subway tunnels echoed with the sound of approaching vehicles. And above them, the sky filled with aircraft that had seemed to appear from nowhere. Command, we need immediate evacuation. Peters shouted into his comm unit. The humans, they were ready for us. They were ready all along. Stone stood in her command center, watching as humanity's true defensive capabilities revealed themselves. Years of preparation, misdirection, and patience were about to pay off. The Empire had thought they were conquering a primitive world. Instead, they had walked into the most elaborate ambush in human history. All units, she broadcast on the command frequency, you have authorization to engage. Show them what Earth can really do. The world erupted into action. Hidden doors in mountains slid open, revealing massive energy weapons. The seas churned as underwater bases activated. Earth's trap was springing shut, and the Empire's forces were caught in the middle of it all. Commander Ross stared in disbelief as his tactical display lit up with thousands of new threats. The primitive satellites they had dismissed were transforming, unfolding like metal flowers to reveal advanced weapon systems. The supposedly simple weather monitoring stations were actually part of an orbital defense grid. All ships, evasive action, Ross shouted, but the order came too late. The defense grid powered up, creating a web of energy that trapped the Empire's vessels in place. Their engines strained against the invisible force, but they couldn't break free. In the Lunar Command Center, Admiral Stone watched the energy grid activate. Status report, she ordered. Energy web at full power. Lieutenant Wells replied. Empire ships are contained. Their engines are active, but they're not going anywhere. Stone nodded and opened a channel to Mars. Captain Miller, Are your batteries ready? Ready and aimed. Miller responded from his hidden base beneath the red planet's surface. Those Empire ships won't know what hit them. On Earth, the trapped invasion forces were facing their own nightmare. Commander Peters and his troops watched in horror as the ground beneath their feet began to move. The empty streets of Washington, D.C. split open, revealing complex tunnel systems. From these tunnels emerged Earth's real military forces, armed with weapons far more advanced than anything the Empire had expected. "Command, we need immediate extraction," Peters shouted into his comm unit. The sound of energy weapons filled the air as Earth's forces opened fire. His troops scrambled for cover, but there was nowhere to hide. Every building, every street corner, had been designed as part of Earth's defense plan. Ross tried desperately to regain control of the situation. "Launch all remaining fighters," he ordered. "Target those defense platforms." The Empire's fighters roared out of their carrier ships, weapons blazing. But Earth was ready for this too. The seemingly primitive weather satellites suddenly released swarms of small, agile drones. These machines moved with impossible speed, intercepting the Empire's fighters before they could reach their targets. "Sir," Turner reported, his voice shaking, "we're detecting massive energy buildups from Mars and the Moon. They're not just defending from Earth. They've got us surrounded." In her lunar base, Stone gave the order they had waited years to give. "All planetary defense systems, you have permission to fire. Show them what humanity can really do." The surface of Mars lit up as hidden silos opened, launching salvos of advanced missiles. The Moon's craters revealed energy cannon arrays, their beams cutting through space toward the trapped Empire fleet. And from Earth, thousands of defense systems activated simultaneously, unleashing a storm of weapons that the Empire had never seen before. "Impossible," Ross shouted as his ships began taking hits. "Their technology, it's more advanced than ours." The Empire's shields, designed to stop known weapons, proved useless against Earth's defenses. Humanity had studied the Empire's technology for years, developing countermeasures for every system they had. On the ground, Earth's forces moved with practiced precision. They had trained for this moment in hidden facilities, using knowledge gained from years of secretly studying the Empire's tactics. Peters and his invasion forces found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were executing a carefully planned extermination. "Admiral," Wells reported from his station, "the Empire's ground forces are in full retreat. They're trying to reach their transport ships, but our surface-to-space weapons are preventing any takeoffs." Stone allowed herself a small smile. "Keep them pinned down. Let them see exactly what they've walked into." In orbit, the Empire's mighty fleet was being torn apart. The energy web held them in place while weapons fired from 3 different planets hammered their defenses. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being destroyed by the very civilization they had dismissed as primitive. Ross watched in horror as his command display showed ship after ship going dark. "How?" he demanded. "How did they hide all this?" "Our scans showed nothing." The answer came from Earth's combined military command, broadcasting on all Empire frequencies. The message was clear and devastating. "For decades, we watched you conquer peaceful worlds. We studied your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. Everything you saw, everything you scanned, was what we wanted you to see. Earth wasn't defenseless. We were waiting." In Washington, D.C., Peters and his surviving troops had been forced into surrender. As Earth's soldiers approached, their advanced armor making the Empire's equipment look primitive, Peters finally understood. They hadn't invaded a weak world. They had walked into the galaxy's most elaborate trap. Stone stood in her command center, watching as humanity's years of preparation paid off. The Empire's fleet was in ruins, their ground forces captured or destroyed. Earth's defensive systems had performed even better than their simulations had predicted. "Send word to all commands," she ordered. "Begin Phase 2. Show them exactly what else we've been hiding." Across the solar system, Even more hidden bases began to reveal themselves. Facilities in the asteroid belt, weapons platforms disguised as space debris, and defense systems hidden in the atmospheres of gas giants all activated. The Empire hadn't just underestimated Earth, they had failed to comprehend the full scale of humanity's preparation. Ross slumped in his command chair as his mighty invasion fleet died around him. The humans hadn't just beaten them. They had revolutionized planetary defense. Every primitive feature of Earth had been part of an elaborate deception. They had taken the Empire's greatest strength, its arrogance, and turned it into a fatal weakness. In the lunar base, Stone prepared to deliver the final message to the few surviving Empire ships. Earth's victory would send a clear message to the galaxy. Appearance and reality were very different things, and underestimating humanity was a mistake that would not be forgotten. The Empire's mighty fleet was falling apart in Earth's orbit. Their ships, once proud symbols of galactic dominance, were now little more than targets in humanity's shooting gallery. Commander Ross watched helplessly as another cruiser exploded, its debris joining the growing cloud of wreckage around his command ship. "Sir, we've lost contact with 60% of our fleet," Turner reported, his voice trembling. "The human weapons, they're not just advanced, they're specifically designed to counter our defenses." Ross slammed his fist on his command console. "Order all surviving ships to concentrate their fire on the lunar base. If we can take out their command center." He never finished the sentence. The lunar surface suddenly rippled like water, revealing massive cannon arrays hidden beneath a holographic camouflage system. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out, cutting through the Empire's strongest shields like they were made of paper. In the lunar command center, Admiral Stone watched the battle with cold satisfaction. "Status of the Mars batteries?" she asked. "Captain Miller reports all systems performing above expected parameters," Wells answered. "The Empire's ships are trapped between our crossfire. They've lost their ability to coordinate their defense." On Earth, the ground battle had turned into a complete rout. Commander Peters and his surviving troops had been herded into containment zones by Earth's forces. The humans' advanced battle suits made the Empire's armor look like children's toys. Every piece of technology the humans revealed was decades ahead of what the Empire possessed. "This is Ground Force 7, a panicked voice crackled over the Empire's command frequency. "They're everywhere. The buildings, the roads, even the trees, they're all part of their weapon systems." Stone smiled at the chaos in the enemy communications. Earth's defense systems had been built into the very infrastructure of their cities. What looked like ordinary streetlights were actually energy weapon mounts. Park benches concealed shield generators. Even the trees in some areas were advanced sensor arrays disguised with living plant tissue. "Launch the hunter-seekers," Stone ordered. "Let's show them what else we've been hiding." From hidden silos across Earth, thousands of small dart-like vessels emerged. These autonomous weapons had been specifically programmed with the Empire's tactical patterns. They swarmed through space, targeting the weak points in enemy ship designs that Earth had spent years studying. Ross watched in horror as the hunter-seekers tore through his remaining ships. "How did they know?" he whispered. "How did they know exactly where to hit us?" The answer came in the form of a transmission from Earth's command. Major Baker's voice was calm and professional. "Did you really think those civilian ships you encountered over the years were just traders and explorers? We've been studying you for decades. Every weakness, every flaw in your designs. We know them all." In Washington, D.C., Peters and his troops had been completely surrounded. The ground beneath their feet suddenly transformed, revealing it was actually a massive detention system. Energy fields sprang up, creating containment cells that their weapons couldn't penetrate. "Attention Empire forces," a voice announced from hidden speakers. "Your weapons have been neutralized. Your ships are destroyed. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law. The same law you ignored when conquering peaceful worlds." Stone opened a channel to the asteroid belt bases. "Begin final phase. Target any ships attempting to flee." Hidden facilities throughout the asteroid belt activated. What the Empire had dismissed as random space rocks were actually disguised weapon platforms. Any Empire ship that tried to escape Earth's energy web found itself caught in a new killing zone. Admiral Wells reported, "We're detecting power spikes from the Empire's command ship. They're trying to activate their mass destruction weapons." Stone's expression hardened. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Show them our final surprise." Across the solar system, a new type of energy field activated. The Empire's most powerful weapons, their planet killer devices, simply powered down. Earth had developed a system that could shut down any energy source using Empire technology. "Impossible," Ross shouted as his ship's systems went dark. "No civilization has this level of technology. You're supposed to be primitives." The response came from Admiral Stone herself, broadcast across all frequencies. "We learned long ago that appearing weak was our greatest strength. Your Empire saw what it wanted to see. A primitive world ripe for conquest. What you actually found was a civilization that had surpassed you in every way." The few surviving Empire ships hung powerless in space, their crews watching in stunned silence as Earth's full military might revealed itself. Hidden bases on every planet and moon in the solar system activated. Defense platforms emerged from gas giant storms. Even the sun itself hosted disguised sensor arrays. Peters, watching from his containment cell on Earth, finally understood the full scope of humanity's deception. Every piece of primitive technology had been a carefully crafted fake. The humans hadn't just prepared for invasion. They had created an entirely new type of planetary defense, one based on deception and hidden strength. "Admiral," Wells reported, "the Empire's command ship is sending out a distress signal." Stone nodded. "Let them. In fact, help boost their signal. I want their entire empire to see what happened here." The signal went out, carrying with it sensor data and battle recordings. The Empire's mighty invasion fleet had been reduced to floating wreckage. Their ground forces were captured. Their most advanced weapons had been rendered useless. And humanity was just getting started. Ross stood on his powerless bridge, watching as Earth's forces moved in to capture his command ship. The supposedly primitive planet had just demonstrated military technology that would revolutionize warfare across the galaxy. And they had kept it all hidden, waiting for the perfect moment to spring their trap. Stone looked at the tactical display, showing the Empire's devastated forces. Earth's deception had worked better than anyone had hoped. But this was more than just a victory. It was a message to the galaxy. Humanity had proven that true strength lies not in displaying power, but in knowing when to hide it. 3 days after the battle, Commander Ross stood in a large meeting room on Earth, his hands bound by energy restraints. Through the room's massive windows, he could see the wreckage of his once mighty fleet being methodically dismantled by Earth's recovery ships. Each piece was carefully studied before being recycled. The humans were still learning, still improving their technology by examining the Empire's failures. Admiral Stone entered the room, accompanied by Major Baker and Captain Miller. They wore simple military uniforms without elaborate decorations, another stark difference from the Empire's showy style. They sat across from Ross at a plain table, their expressions neutral. "Why am I still alive?" Ross asked, breaking the silence. "You destroyed my fleet, captured my troops. Why keep the commander of a failed invasion?" Stone studied him for a moment. "Because you're going home, Commander. You're going to deliver our message." Ross laughed bitterly. "What message? That you tricked us? That you hid your true strength? That we gave you a choice," Baker said firmly. "We always give a choice before we strike back." Miller slid a data device across the table. "Your scout ships entered our system 6 months ago. We detected them immediately. We could have destroyed them, but we didn't. We let them scan our defenses. We let them report back." Ross stared at the device. "You wanted us to attack." Stone nodded. "We've been watching your empire expand for decades, conquering peaceful worlds, exploiting their resources, enslaving their people. You were coming for Earth eventually. We just decided to control when and how that happened. On the device, Ross could see recordings from dozens of hidden cameras placed throughout the solar system. His scout ships had been tracked from the moment they arrived. Earth had known everything. Their numbers, their weapons, their tactics. But your technology, Ross said, bewildered. It's beyond anything we've seen. How did you develop all this in secret? Baker smiled slightly. Did you ever wonder why we never joined the galactic community? Why we kept our space exploration limited and our communications basic? It wasn't because we couldn't advance further. It was because we were watching and learning. Stone stood and walked to the window. When humanity first detected alien signals 200 years ago, we made a decision. Instead of announcing ourselves, we would observe. We intercepted transmissions, studied technology, and learned about the major powers, including your empire. And we didn't like what we saw, Miller added. Conquest, exploitation, domination. So Earth united with a single purpose: to develop in secret, to appear primitive, and to prepare for the day we would need to defend ourselves. Outside the window, a new group of ships rose from Earth's surface, sleek vessels with technology Ross couldn't even begin to understand. They moved with impossible grace, taking up defensive positions around the planet. But now the secret is out, Ross said. The entire galaxy will know what Earth is capable of. Stone turned back to him. Yes, and that's exactly what we want. Your empire and others like it thrive by bullying those you perceive as weak. We needed to show the galaxy that appearance and reality can be very different things. In orbit above Earth, the final group of captured Empire troops was being loaded onto a transport ship. Unlike the rest of the invasion force, these soldiers would return home. They would carry with them recordings of Earth's defenses, demonstrations of human technology, and the story of how the Empire's greatest fleet was defeated by a world they thought was defenseless. The transport will take you and a small contingent of your officers back to Empire space, Baker explained. The rest of your forces will remain here as our guests until proper diplomatic relations can be established. Ross looked up in surprise. You're not going to execute us, or turn this into a counter-invasion? Stone shook her head. That's not who we are, Commander. We defended ourselves, and now we're sending you home with a message and an offer. Miller passed across another data device. This contains our terms. We've already transmitted them to your government, but we want you to deliver them personally. You've seen what we can do. They'll believe you. The terms were surprisingly reasonable. Earth wanted formal recognition of its sovereignty, non-aggression pacts, and the freedom of several worlds the Empire had recently conquered. In exchange, they offered limited technology sharing and assistance with certain galactic challenges, like resource scarcity and interstellar travel efficiency. Your leaders have 3 standard months to respond, Stone said. During that time, we'll maintain our defensive posture but take no aggressive action. Ross studied their faces, and if they refuse, if they decide to return with an even larger fleet. For the first time, Stone smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. Then they'll discover that what you saw was only a fraction of Earth's true capabilities. We revealed enough to win this battle. Not everything we can do. In the Lunar Command Center, Lieutenant Wells was monitoring transmissions from across the galaxy. News of Earth's victory was spreading fast. Already, representatives from 3 different galactic alliances had sent messages requesting diplomatic contact. The balance of power was shifting. The transport ship is ready, Admiral, Wells reported as Stone returned to the command center. Good, she replied. Begin Phase 5. It's time to bring our other ships home. Ross, now aboard the transport with his surviving officers, watched in shock as new vessels appeared near Jupiter. These weren't Earth defense ships. They were deep space vessels, returning from missions to distant stars. Humanity hadn't just been hiding their technology. They'd been exploring the galaxy in secret for decades. We tracked 43 habitable worlds beyond Empire space. Baker told him before he boarded the transport. "We've established peaceful contact with 18 non-Empire civilizations. You weren't containing us, Commander. We were containing you." As the transport cleared the solar system, Ross took one last look at Earth. The seemingly primitive blue planet now stood revealed as one of the most advanced civilizations in known space. They had perfected the art of deception, turning it into their greatest defense. In her office on the lunar base, Admiral Stone looked at the reports coming in from across Earth. The hidden defense systems were being returned to standby mode. The underground bases were resuming their normal operations. And on the surface, life continued as if nothing had happened. Parks were full of children playing. Cities buzzed with activity. The people of Earth had faced a galactic invasion, and most had gone about their day normally. "Any final thoughts, Admiral?" Miller asked as they prepared to return to Mars. Stone looked at the starfield visible through her window. "The Empire thought Earth was defenseless until we fired back. Let's make sure the rest of the galaxy understands the lesson. Never judge a civilization by what it chooses to reveal." Across the stars, the Empire's leaders received the first distress signals. Their invincible fleet had been destroyed, their ground forces captured, and a supposedly primitive world had revealed itself to be a technological powerhouse. The message attached to these signals was simple but clear. Earth was open to friendship or prepared for war. The choice was theirs. The Empire had thought Earth was defenseless until it fired back. Now they, and the rest of the galaxy, would never make that mistake again.